consider this my formal application to Swift Talk. So I had another dumb series idea. In 2020, I found myself falling in love with artists that I never imagined I'd fall in love with, but I haven't done the best job yet of backtracking through their discography, so I want to change that. So I thought I'd try this. How to become a Swiftie in 7 days. So there are 7 Taylor Swift albums that I haven't really listened to, with the exception of 1989, but I want to see if my opinion changes on that one. So for 7 days, I'm going to listen to a different Taylor Swift album each day, and I'll report back to you my thoughts on each album every day. And hopefully in 7 days, we'll find out if I become a full-blown Swiftie. So if you want to watch me grow as a Taylor Swift fan, or even if you just want to listen along, join me for the next 7 days starting tomorrow, January 2nd. I'm honestly kind of freaking out right now. I woke up this morning with 230 followers, something like that. And now there's already so many more. What? What is happening? I know in the world of TikTok, 300 followers isn't anything insane, but this is happening really quickly and it feels like a lot. But I'm really glad everybody seems super hyped on my Taylor Swift idea. And I'm genuinely super excited to start listening to everything tomorrow. I actually already have all of the albums saved on my Spotify, deluxe versions included. So thank you! And also I'm kind of scared. I thought maybe it might be a fun goal to hit 500 followers by the end of January. But then today happened. What is this? What is this? I've literally spent years feeling like I had nothing to say on the internet, that I had nothing worthwhile for people to listen to, that everything that I could say was totally inadequate. And it genuinely took me getting divorced and trying to figure out who I am again as a creative person to finally feel like I had a voice again. And I've spent the last year really trying to build my social media with very little results. And then I got on this app. What? I don't even have any words. I'm beside myself. I genuinely appreciate everyone who's enjoying my content. It's literally all I wanted to do since I left college. Okay, so the last 24 hours have been wild, but thanks for the overwhelmingly positive response. Anyways, welcome to day 1 where we're listening to Taylor Swift's debut self-titled album. I think I'm gonna do kind of a reactions video to each of my listens, and then I will do a part 2 with my overall thoughts. And I just finished my first listen of the album. I don't think I was ready for how nostalgic this album would feel. I didn't like Taylor Swift in high school, but I still recognize most of these songs. Alright, I'm gonna listen to it a second time while I do my makeup. Okay, I just finished listen number 2. And this most likely will be my least favorite album, but it's a pretty pleasant listen so far, and it's pretty stinking cute. Alright, I'm in my car. I'm gonna go to work here in a second, and I'm going in for listen number 3. Okay, so I'm at work right now, and I have not finished listen number 3. So I will see you when I'm off work in part 2 with my final thoughts. Welcome to the end of day 1 of How to Become a Swiftie in 7 days. So I listened to Taylor Swift's self-titled debut album 3 whole times today. And here are my thoughts. I feel like the most encompassing thing I can say is that this is a debut album. It has some flaws, and for Taylor Swift, the vocals are a little weak. But despite every blemish that you could nitpick on this album, there's a whole lot of charm and a whole lot of heart on this album that I think plays into why Taylor Swift became such a household name. I feel like the vocals are mostly weak because she was 16. And it feels like they were trying to make her seem like more of a powerhouse vocal than she really is, because let's be honest, she slays in her lower register. But I think what works best on this album is the songwriting. There's some really lyrically strong moments on tracks Tied Together with a Smile and Mary's song. And honestly, I don't know what's wrong with you if you don't think Our Song is a bop. All in all, it's a good album, but I'm excited to see her grow. Okay, give me a minute, let me see if I can do this. I think this is where I currently stand. Good morning and welcome to day 2 of How to Become a Swiftie in 7 days. And this is part 1 of day 2. I have my coffee in my midsummer mug. And Oliver's here too. So I think I'm ready to start listen number 1. It ended up taking me a minute to get through this first listen, but I did it. And I already love this album so much more. It's definitely making me regret the hater 17-year-old me used to be. So I think I'm gonna go get in my car and start listen number 2. Okay, so I'm partway through listen number 2, and I went and bought these, just so you know how committed I am. Sorry it took me all day to film part 1, but I'm home from work now, and I'm partway through my 3rd listen. Also, before somebody asks me, I bought CDs earlier because at my main job I'm not allowed to have my phone inside, so I can listen to my CD player, and I have a CD player. Anyways, I'll see you here in a bit with my final thoughts. I finished my 3rd listen, so now it's time for day 2, part 2. So first off, I want to say, I went into this album knowing that high school me low-key loved You Belong With Me. She just never would have admitted it. And Fearless is honestly quite a step up from the self-titled album. So I listened to the platinum version, and there's a lot of songs there. So really my main criticism would be is that some of the songs just are good, but they're just kind of generic pop country. However, I feel like Fearless gives us our first glimpse into Taylor Swift's pop sensibility. I mean, compared to the self-titled album, this album just doesn't feel nearly as country. And I actually think that's probably one of the best parts of this album. I feel like the classic songs from this record work so well because they can't be pigeonholed as country songs. They transcend the country label because they're just so well written. So yeah, it's a bop. I've got a cooler pillow this time for my track ranking. Also, cat. Okay, here are the songs. And just keep in mind that I've only listened to this album 3 times. Okay, so this is day 3, part 1 of How to Become a Swiftie in 7 days. And I'm sorry I didn't end up saying this yesterday, but thanks for 1,000 follows. Also, today we are listening to Speak Now. Because, you know, I forgot to name the album in my last part 1. Anyways, today's probably going to be a little interesting because I'm not entirely sure what my work schedule's going to be today. But I've already started my first listen. And I've already cried. So we're going to see how the rest of today goes. So I'm home from work and I finally finished my first listen. And ranking this album is going to be hard. Like, is there a weak song on this album? Because I don't think there's a weak song on this album. I kind of hate that you all were right. So take all the satisfaction you want from that. Anyways, I'm going to try and listen to this one more time, probably with some lyrics, and I will be back with my final thoughts. Yeah, I don't even need to listen to this a 3rd time. Okay, here we are, day 3, part 2. And we're going to talk about the album that is honestly peak pop country Taylor. Speak Now. So every single one of you in the comments were right about this album. Like, I actually can't name a bad song on this one. And honestly, this feels like the most sonically diverse that I've heard Taylor yet. I live and breathe pop punk, and yet none of you told me that Better Than Revenge is a pop punk song. And Haunted is an epic pop rock jam. And Mean is probably as country as this whole album gets, but it's probably the catchiest song on the whole album. And for anyone wondering, Dear John is the song that made me cry. I'm divorced, so you can probably put that one together yourself. And honestly, the whole sentiment behind Never Grow Up makes me choke up a little too. I mean, this album is just such a solid precursor into Taylor's pop stardom. 10 out of 10, I have no complaints. And as usual, here are the songs from Speak Now ranked. Sorry this is kind of late, but welcome to day 4 of How to Become a Swiftie in 7 days. And this won't be a reaction video, but it's still part 1 because I want more than 60 seconds to explain my thoughts. And if you can't tell, I was feeling very inspired by today's listen, Red. And the first thing I need to say about this album is Red takes a massive leap in maturity from all of the previous albums. Like, this album makes me feel immediately closer to this current era of Taylor that I have fallen in love with. While all the singles from this album are pretty much what you would expect from a Taylor banger, albeit these are full-blown pop songs now, the other songs that make up this album show us a much more refined Taylor and give us an extra dose of what feels like a wistful melancholy. Although this album still shows us a pretty wide range of emotions, from letting go of hurt feelings on tracks like Holy Ground, to processing the grief that comes at the end of a relationship on tracks like the infamous All Too Well. There's a lot to really take in here. So come back for part 2. And welcome back to part 2 of day 4 on How to Become a Swiftie in 7 days. So as I was stating in part 1, Red is just such a huge jump in maturity, and honestly I'm pretty awestruck by it. Like, I feel like this album is not as immediately likable as Speak Now, but I feel very drawn to it. Where Speak Now kind of feels like an album that I'd want to throw on and play loud when I want to be in a good mood. There's a certain quality about Red that makes me just want to take it in. Like, all I want to do is go on a long car ride and listen to this album. And for me, this is often a sign that an album's gonna stick with me. While unlike Speak Now, I feel like there are some tracks that fall flat, what works here works so well that I'm just not quite ready to let it go. So I'm not gonna be posting my track ranking tonight. I'm gonna try to post it tomorrow, but I want more time to mull it over. So yeah, Red's making me feel things. This was the hardest one yet, by the way. Hey, it's How to Become a Swiftie in 7 days, day 5. And today we're listening to Taylor's official entrance into pop music, 1989. So this is my oddball album this week, because technically, I listened to it a year ago already. But I wanted to give it another shot today. But for part 1, I want to do something a little different. Let's go to the record store. Well, that was a bust. Take 2. We're gonna try that again. I want it. Well, that was at least somewhat successful. Also, while I'm in this neck of the woods, fun fact, I actually went to the same college as Taylor Swift's grandmother, Marjorie. This Marjorie right here. So come back for part 2 to see if my mind has changed about 1989. And welcome back to How to Become a Swiftie in 7 days, day 5, part 2. And so the question of the day is, did I like 1989 more than I did a year ago? So I listened to 1989 as part of the music writers exercise on Twitter last year. And this was the little mini review I did. When I listened to this album last year, I desperately wanted to love it. I wanted Taylor to win me over. And ultimately she did, but a few months later with Folklore. And to answer the question of the day, yeah, I like it better, but still not as much as I wish I did. And it's honestly frustrating, because this is where we see Taylor fully embrace pop music. And this is the most cohesive record of hers I've heard yet. But something about listening to it leaves me a little hollow. And I think it's because I feel like Taylor's at her most charming when she's at her singer-songwriter roots. And this album is a massive pop production. So it's a solid record, but it's not my favorite. My favorites didn't even end up changing that much in the last year. Welcome back to How to Become a Swiftie in 7 days. It's day 6, and this is part 1. I can't believe that we're actually almost to the end of this week. Anyways, I've listened to Reputation once so far, and so far I do feel much less hollow about this album. I might be a little biased because I really vibe with the dark pop sound. Like, as far as pop music goes, Reputation is sonically closer to what I would normally like listening to. I still don't feel like it's gonna top Red, but I'm gonna go listen to it a little more and we'll see how it goes. Alright, I've listened to Reputation a second time now. And I probably don't have a good reason, but I do like it more than 1989. Like, I'm just here for dark, edgy Taylor. So yeah, so far I'm vibing a lot better with this album. Anyways, I'm probably gonna listen to it 1 or 2 more times, and then I will be back with my final thoughts. And welcome back to How to Become a Swiftie in 7 days. And it's part 2 of day 6. And we're dealing with a slight change of scenery because I just don't want to remove him from my lap. Today we're talking about Reputation, and honestly, I'm vibing right now. I am feeling the darkness. And wow, this album just feels like a giant middle finger. And I love it. If I'm being honest though, when Look What You Made Me Do first came out, I kind of hated it. But it's growing on me. With Reputation, Taylor takes the pop sound she embraced on 1989 and cranks it to 11. And as the TikTokers say, adds a little spice. And it's actually a nice juxtaposition to see America's Good Girl go bad. And I feel like I'm probably connecting to this album a little better because the anger on some of these tracks feels pretty real. Like, this album is just a genuine representation of the frustration Taylor was feeling. It does a fantastic job of taking massive pop sounds and making them feel like art. Okay, so over here is my track ranking for Reputation, but also while I have your attention, tomorrow is the last official day of this series. I do have a few ideas for maybe some bonus content that I can do between now and February, but I want to end this series tomorrow with a bang or something. I don't know. I was thinking of maybe doing like a live stream or something like that. I don't know. If anybody actually has any ideas of some way I can make tomorrow more fun, totally leave it in the comments, let me know. But anyways, thanks for everybody who's been participating, commenting, and following along with this series. I really appreciate all the interaction. I really appreciate being able to connect with some people over cool music. And I'm really excited to become an official Swiftie tomorrow. So I just got off work, and I listened to Lover 3 times. Do you know what that means? I just became a Swiftie in 7 days. I'm gonna go home, and we're gonna talk more about it. So we did it. Welcome back to day 7 of how to become a Swiftie in 7 days. Excuse the bad heart drawing on my face, I had to. Today we listened to Taylor's last pop effort before she went all folk queen on us, Lover. And what a colorful follow-up to the darkness we experienced on Reputation. But even though Taylor's lightened up on this album, her songwriting still continues to grow here. This album still probably won't beat Reputation or Red for me, but I know I would have loved this album if I would have just listened to it when it came out. It has such a beautiful and hopeful theme of love and holding on to the people that you love. And rather than making me feel like I just got whiplash right after listening to Reputation, listening to the brightness and happiness on this album is such a celebratory feeling considering the sadness and the anger that came before it. After listening to Lover, it's clear that each album is a beautiful snapshot of each era of Taylor's life. And I'm glad I experienced it. So this week has been absolutely wild. I've been kind of weirdly emotional about this whole thing all day today. So while the official series is over, I do have some bonus content ideas for this weekend. So that way the fun isn't completely over. I'm going to at least be doing an album ranking tomorrow. And hopefully kind of a mushy-gushy wrap-up video. I will also be writing a full blog piece about this experience because, oh my god. I will hopefully at least be watching the Miss Americana documentary on Netflix at some point this weekend. Now for the reason you all are actually here. Here's my Lover album ranking, right here, yay! Okay, I said I was going to do this, so here we are. Now that I have finally listened to every Taylor Swift album, I'm going to give you my album ranking. Number 9 is the self-titled debut because your first album should never be your best album. Number 8 is Fearless. It's a great improvement, but we're not to the really good stuff yet. Number 7 is 1989, a fantastic album, but one that just didn't do much for me. Number 6 is Evermore. The first half is perfect, but the rest is a little dull. Number 5 is Lover, aka the perfect follow-up to Reputation. Number 4 is Speak Now because every track is just so good. Number 3 is Reputation because we just stand Bad Girl Taylor. Number 2 is Red because of course it was. And number 1 has to be Folklore because I would have never become a Swiftie without it. So as it stands, that's my ranking. I'm kind of thinking I may come back in another 6 months or so and give an updated version of this. Because you never really know what's going to end up speaking to you down the road. So, hey Swift Talk. I guess I became a Swiftie in 7 days and this is what I've learned. This series is honestly just one part of a journey I've been on for the last year. A journey of freeing yourself from guilty pleasures and musical elitism. I actually didn't let myself enjoy the body of work of Taylor Swift because she was too lame and too basic. But what's kind of hilarious is the basic Taylor Swift I thought I knew then is completely different than the Taylor Swift I know now. Taylor Swift is one of the greatest American songwriters of my generation, and I don't think that's debatable. I think that's an objective fact. The heart and effort she puts into her craft and into building a relationship with her fans is admirable. The point of this series and any future series is this. The idea that you can have a cool taste in music, throw it out the window. It doesn't exist. It's authenticity above all.